Welcome to the Multiply Your Success podcast, where each week we help growth-minded entrepreneurs and franchise leaders take the next step in their expansion journey. I'm your host, Tom Dufour, CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team, and as we open today, I'm wondering how your website is converting potential customers or franchise buyers. Maybe another question might be, when is the last time you even checked? Well, our guest today is Sahil Patel, who's a landing page expert, and he shares with us the secrets he's learned on how to optimize a landing page. Now, Sahil is the CEO of Spiralyze, and he reveals during our interview secrets that he's learned from optimizing landing pages and leveraging data on over 130,000 A/B tests. And he's worked with SaaS leaders such as BambooHR, Crowdstrike, Unbounce, and hundreds more. You're going to love this interview. It's super practical with great tips you can implement in your business right away. So let's go ahead and jump right into our interview.
My name is Sahil Patel. I'm the CEO of Spiralyze, and I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. Really grateful for it. And one of the things that stood out and why I was interested and excited to have you on the show is you are really a landing page expert. It's a piece of marketing. And by the way, guilty as charged, where it's something for my own business that has suffered and struggled, and other marketing that we've spent probably would have been more successful with better landing pages. And so I'd love for you, just from a basic level, as you're an expert in this area, just to talk a little bit about why landing pages even matter, what one is, just some of these basic fundamentals there.
Yes. So why do landing pages matter? Landing pages, but I'm going to just, for our audience listening to this, let's define landing pages super broadly. Okay, so if you want to geek out in digital marketing, you can talk about paid landing pages and organic and product. Let's just kind of put that over here for the moment and just say, working definition, landing page is just anything where someone finds you online on some kind of web property that you own or control. So I'm also going to put over here, if your brand has a presence on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Instagram, that's wonderful. Let's just put that over here, because that's a different kind of game that is its own art form. Because Facebook controls that environment, and there's just very limited things you can do, and there's pros and cons to that. So, but in the middle is the big wide world of your own kind of however you show up on the internet. For most people, that's like a website, and they might spin up some additional landing pages on separate domains or subdomains that are purpose-built. Just broadly, all of that. Okay, great way to think of it. This is the front door to your restaurant. Now, you can choose how to show up. If you are McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, big fan. I think you're an Atlanta guy. I'm an Atlanta guy. Big important place in Atlanta and Georgia. You show up a certain way. What is the front door? There's a drive-through, which is a wonderful drive-through experience. But it's a signature Chick-fil-A experience, and they've nailed it, and it's very specific. Okay, if you're like I'm going to go on the other end. If you're a fancy like white tablecloth steakhouse, people expect something. Okay, if you give a Chick-fil-A experience, and I love Chick-fil-A, by the way, to a $70 steakhouse experience, something's wrong, and vice versa. So your landing page, it's the first thing they see. It's the front door, and they're going to stay or leave based on a couple quick, in the first 5 seconds, takeaways of just like, am I in the right place? Okay, I'm bringing a date to a fancy dinner. If it feels like fast food, something's wrong. And if I'm taking the kids for a quick bite before soccer practice, and it's white tablecloth and someone with a French accent asking me if I'd like to talk to the sommelier, also something is wrong. So that's what your landing page is. That's why it matters. Right? Hugely important. You're not going to even stay to make order the number 4 meal or have that fancy steak if just in the first few seconds the front door is wrong.
It's the difference between someone showing up in dirty jeans and a ripped up shirt and a beat up pickup truck with no branding, or someone showing up in a pressed uniform, a clean logoed polo, and a wrapped van or a wrapped truck.
You nailed it. In fact, we know the space a little bit. We have a customer. It's a franchised home services business. And by the way, that was one of the takeaways in all of the optimization we did, that their best performing pages was when you showed the truck and 3 uniformed service people in uniform that looked like they were happy to be there. And it outperformed almost everything else.
That's a little nugget here for anyone in the home services business, right? They didn't even know.
Yeah, well, I'll give you, let's just jump right in some tactics. A great tactic to try out, and if you're in home services, and I want to kind of generalize this for everyone listening, is show your product, show your product, show your product. Showing your product almost always beats what I call happy people. Happy people hurt conversions. Particularly, but this is true even for service businesses, stock photos of happy people. And you look, whether it's direct to consumer, it's business to business, B2B type services or software, they're full of these stock photos. They went to, Adobe or whatever and said, oh, we'll get, well, 1 hour, we'll talk about home service. Their homepage showed like happy mom with 2 kids. Like, it's great. It's kind of indirectly saying if you call 1 hour, you'll have a happy household. It still doesn't tell you anything about the product. What is the product of 1 hour? It's uniformed professional service people in a good truck. They look good and they have the expertise. They're credible to fix your problem. That's the product on a service business. Now, you shouldn't take my word on it. You should run some tests. We could talk about what that means in a website context. We did what is the gold standard, A/B testing. That's what our company does. And the data prove that more people actually buy when you show them the product. And in the context of a home service business, that's the uniform people next to a wrap truck.
You talk a little bit about A/B testing. Let's dive into that a little bit.
Let's talk about kind of how many companies go about making a website. Stage 1, it's called the prehistoric area. They just put some stuff on the web, and the CEO's nephew made the website kind of in his basement. Okay? Prehistoric era. We fast forward a little bit. There's a little bit of like what people call best practice, but in fact, there's thinly disguised anecdotes. Someone said, oh, this worked for me, my last company, or I read a blog that said you should do this, or maybe even worse, our competitors doing it, so why don't we copy it? And by the way, none of these are terrible ideas, but they don't actually tell you, does anything work or not? And what this is like, and where I'm leading to, is kind of modern website, which, if done well, uses A/B testing data to make decisions. So I'll give you the answer. Now, let's use an analogy. You go to the doctor and she says, hey, Tom, I've got this medicine for your stomach pains. And you said, oh, okay, I've never heard of it. What is it? And the doc goes, oh, yeah, I put this together at home. You might say, well, has anyone else tried it? My neighbor tried it. It worked great for him. Okay, like, what? Did he have the same symptoms? Is he old guy? Is he a young guy? By the way, like, how do you know I'm getting the right dose? Like, is he my size? Is he smaller? I want to know something before I pop this thing in my mouth. Okay. That is basically how a lot of websites get made. Say, yeah, I gave this medicine to my neighbor. I conjured it up. They didn't die. It's good enough. Now, imagine the doctor said, well, Tom, we put this thing through an FDA clinical trial. Half the people got a placebo. Half the people got the drug. We made sure there was men and women, old people, young people, healthy people, sick people in both groups. And we measured how much better did the people that got the drug compare to the people who got placebo. And we did this a few different times. And by the way, we did it for like a couple months. We made sure we could, make sure you didn't get better and then 2 weeks later keel over and die. Which medicine do you want to sign up to take?
Well, when you put it that way, I think the answer is pretty clear, but
that's what A/B testing is. You have a homepage, you're selling home services, you got a franchise operation, it's not the only way you get business, but it's an important way. You've probably got thousands of people a month coming to look at your site. What you should do, and there's tons of software. By the way, some of this is free software. Okay, you don't have to spend a lot of money on this. You can set it up so half your audience, randomly selected, will see the original version of your homepage. Half the audience will see something different. Maybe it's a different message. Maybe it's a different image, right? That image of the professional looking, your professionals, your service professionals in a uniform. They look credible. They've got the truck. It's branded. Use that image versus something else. Maybe you show social proof. You show, hey, we've got a 4.5 star rating on Yelp, and we've had 5,000 people review us. Social proof can be, not always, but can be very powerful. Half the people see that version. Half the people see the other version. You run it long enough to make sure you get a representative sample of data, and then you measure the difference. And if you do that once, by the way, you're already better off than most companies. And if you really want to do it, you do it over and over and over to find what is the optimal version. Because if you haven't updated your website in 4 years, almost anything will probably be better. The answer is which of those is actually optimal and gets you more. That's A/B testing.
From what I understand, as you've described this, you can run some A/B tests. And once you find a winner, this is kind of like one of these TV shows, vote them off or on, right? The remaining competitors still have to compete again.
Yes.
And then again and again and again and again. This is kind of what it reminds me of.
Not to mix our metaphors, but a great analogy like that is think about like the NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness.
That's
we
better
start
example.
with a bunch of teams. They face off. The winner keeps going. Now, here's an interesting thing. We love the Cinderella story, that number 8 seed that knocks off the number 2 seed. But in reality, most of the time, what happens to the number 8 seed in the second round?
They lose.
They lose. Why?
The other team's better.
Yeah, they got lucky. And the beauty of sports in general is that on any given day, especially once you get to things like a postseason tournament, everyone's really good. Like you're just looking for the best, but everyone's really good. Okay. So it's kind of the same thing as trying A/B testing. If you run a test and you only run one test, the cost of being wrong is very high, right? If we crown the winner based on one game, you just don't know, were they lucky or were they good? Okay, maybe the other team, someone was injured or just some other exogenous factor that's out of their control. But when you run a bracket, by the time you get to the grade 8, certainly by the time you get to the Final Four, you are pretty confident you've got some of the best teams in the country. Every now and then someone will sneak in there, but certainly over time, you've got the best teams. Now, in the final game, is the team that wins necessarily statistically the best team? It's a hard call, but what you know is they had to defend their win and they'd start over every game in the bracket, just like that in A/B testing. So the cost of being wrong goes way down if you continuously test. You run a test, you find a winner, you make that your new control, and you put something else against it. We call that the challenger. And you just keep challenging it. And the best companies, in fact, may go through 4 homepages in a year because every quarter they're testing new homepages.
That is very interesting. Now, I would think, because this popped into my head, as you said, 4 homepages in a year. Sounds like a lot.
Sounds outlandish, but not abnormal.
How do these changes impact current customers that might be coming back to buy new things or revisit what you're doing?
Yeah, so great question. Are you giving what I'm hearing is, do you give different experiences to your existing customers versus your new customers?
Right.
In marketing speak, we call that new customer acquisition versus land and expand or upsell. So the first thing is, I think you got to kind of make sure you know, if you're starting with like a homepage where kind of everyone comes, you got to decide who you're for. But what I've seen done well is that you have multiple paths, like on a website. And you might just ask people to identify, are you here for the first time or are you an existing or returning customer? And if they say, yes, I'm a returning customer, then you show them different content or you take them to a different page. Say, hey, here's a page for our returning customers. By the way, it turns out, just actually ask, there's a lot of kind of people that, oh, we should try and guess and we should try and know. Most people are not offended if you ask them, are you a returning customer or not? Especially if you put a little tag that says, we're asking so we can give you a tailored experience. It's not intrusive. Don't hit them with like 7 questions when they first get there. But if you ask them that, I would say it's not unlike, we'll go back to the restaurant analogy. Hi, Tom, do you have a reservation today when you walk into a restaurant? Okay. You're not offended. They're not asking about all your dietary preferences and if you have allergies and if you want carbonated water or still water. They're just saying, you have a reservation because if you do, I'm going to take you right to your table. And if you don't, we'll talk about how many people you need a table for 4 or 2 and what are you looking for today? Maybe we can get you in.
Certainly.
Same thing on a website.
You've done A/B testing on over 130,000 sites and iterations of this. I would imagine, and you shared a couple of these, are there a few kind of best practices or things that stick out or maybe 1 or 2 nuggets that you've gleaned from that as a starting point?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of start with kind of 3 things that I think everyone at home listening to this can use without spending a lot of money or doing something very elaborate or sophisticated. And I mentioned one of them earlier, but we'll kind of go into them more. One is show the product. Show the product, show the product. Someone comes to your website, whether you're a service business or a widget business, kind of show the product. Okay, we'll expand on that. That's number 1. Number 2 is start with a great hook. It can be a visual hook. It can be a written hook. Let's start with a great hook. And number three is that the web rewards skimmability. Okay? Now, if we build landing pages for a living, we imagine ourselves, painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and every pixel is going to be perfect, and it's put together with great care. But the reality is, the average person might be reading it on their phone. They've got a kid that they're trying to get to eat. They've got the grocery list up in another browser window, and they're texting with their spouse. They're in a highly distracted state with many things competing for their attention. If you can get through to them in the simplest, easiest possible way, you're going to be much better off. They're going to be much more likely to buy. Whatever buy means, right? If you're a service company, probably they're not pulling out the credit card to spend six figures on some kind of service. They might be just wanting to say, hey, I'd like to talk to a sales rep, get a quote. If you're kind of more in the widget business, maybe they're buying there. And if you're in the software business, certainly they're not, right? Most people are going to do some kind of free trial or talk to a sales rep. So like those three things: show the product, start with the hook, be easy to skim. Let's back up. Let's talk about what these. Show the product. Let me ask you this. Tom, can you think of the last time you saw a car advertisement? Can you picture that in your head? And what was happening in the ad?
The car was driving
mountains.
Yeah, driving on mountains on a plateau or something. Yes.
Now take that same ad, now subtract the car. What would you be left with?
I'd be left with some beautiful scenery, maybe some great B-roll footage.
Whether you have a service business, you have a widget business, you have software like an intangible product, show the product, show the product, show the product. And a great way to do this, I call this the 1 second test. It's something everyone listening can do with zero cost, is take your homepage on your computer, open up your browser, right click, and choose Google Translate. So if you're running a Chrome browser, it's built in, just choose a language that none of your friends speak, right? So just like Arabic or Urdu or Hindi, like just something that's just your friends are unlikely to speak. I'm picking some languages that are spoken in my home. And Google Translate, and it'll turn every piece of copywriting on your homepage into a language that's non-recognized. And what it does is it forces your audience to rely on the imagery. And if you're a car ad, okay, if you're selling a pickup truck, it doesn't matter what language it's in. You're going to see pickup truck and go, pickup truck. Great. Okay. You may not know what they're saying, but you know it's for a pickup truck. And you know the value prop of a pickup truck, say, different from a luxury, sedan. Take your homepage, show it to 5 people, and just ask them, hey, what do you think this company does? Now, you're not looking for something specific, right? They might not be able to tell you that this is HVAC for commercial high rises. Okay? But they might say something like, oh, this looks like some kind of repair business, or this looks like some kind of home service or something. If you can do that, great. If you haven't picked your imagery carefully, you're going to fail the test. Right? If you're using stock photos of people sitting, wearing a blazer, crossing their arms in a conference room, having fun. First of all, where are all these people? What job do they work at that sitting in a conference room is so much fun? Like all this stock imagery is like they're looking at a laptop. Oh my God, that's awesome. I was like, what are you doing at work? That I love my job, but I'm not having that much fun. So the 1 second, and it's a ton of fun because you show it and people are something. You go, okay, something's wrong. Okay, number 2, start with a great hook. Right, landing page, homepage, any kind of pages. Your first job is not to get people to buy, and it's not even to get people to understand why you're better than whatever your competitor. First job is just to get them to stop scrolling, and it's harder than it sounds.
It's like you said, that 1 second test. If you don't see what it is in almost an instant that you think this web page you're on is going to be able to solve your problem, whatever you're looking for, you're gone. It's like out of there.
Well, it's just even like, what is it? Like sometimes I go to these websites, I'm like, what? I don't know what you do. Like, because they have these broad aspirational, the best AI-powered solution for marketers. Like, okay, that feels like half of the products under the sun could fit. Like, it's just so vague. Now, to give everyone listening kind of something tangible, here's what I like to do. I'll take, if I'm working with a customer, maybe even my own homepage or landing page, I'll take it. I'll then go find 3 competitors. They don't have to be exact, just similar. And I'll put them next to each other. Okay. Just like, take a little screenshot, put in a Word doc or a slide deck, and then just, again, show it to some people and just ask them which one of these jumps out at you. And it's a wonderful test because that is what many of your potential customers, your audience are doing. They'll have navigated. Look, what do we all do? We check out a couple things. You go to a restaurant, you look at 3 restaurants. You're picking a hotel, you probably look at a couple hotels. You're looking for HVAC repair, you probably don't just buy from the first one. You probably look at a couple. Look at three or 4 competitors. By the way, you don't have to prove that you're better. Just prove that you're different, right? If all the HVAC repairs say, we're the cheapest, maybe your thing is say, hey, we'll get someone to your house in the first hour. If all of them say, we'll get someone to your house in the first hour, maybe you should say, hey, we have the most experience, or we're the best at multifamily units or something. That's an example of a hook. It doesn't have to be, kind of Mad Men era copywriting.
If you've been talking through this, give us a little background on the company, what you guys do. How can someone reach out to you or the company if they're interested in learning more?
Well, thank you. So the name of the company is called Spiralyze, spiralyze.com. We help companies optimize their websites. Most of what we do is business to business, B2B, using marketing jargon. And about 30% of what we do is direct to consumer brands. And we have this unique thing. We crawl the internet to find everyone else's A/B tests. And then our customers get to run the best ones. And they only pay if it gives them lift. Lift here means a higher conversion rate. If that sounds interesting, check out spiralyze.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I post 4 mornings a week, 7:30 a.m. Eastern, always in short 1-minute snippets, sometimes video, sometimes not, always something kind of fun. Try and sneak a little bit of the eat your veggies content into kind of edutainment.
Well, this is a great time in the show. We make a transition and we ask every guest the same 4 questions before they go. The first question we ask, have you had a miss or 2 on your journey and something you learned from it?
Oh my God, I've had so many misses. How much time you got? On my first, so this is my second time being a CEO. My first business, and not to say I don't have misses here as well, but maybe second time around, at least I'm not making the same mistakes. I'm making new mistakes. On my first business, we raised capital outside company. It was great for the first couple of years. It was a pure software business. And their expertise, the investor, was really in service businesses. And the way you think about deploying capital on a pure service business is very different than a service or even a service hybrid, software service hybrid, which is what Spiralyze is. And as a result, we got to the point where they wanted to go left and I wanted to go right. And it was super painful. And it cost us a bunch of growth. We ended up finding an amicable parting, and I bought them out of their equity position. Then we got kind of the company back on track. And I'd say, I want to give them credit because they recognized that we needed to change them. And they actually came to me and said, hey, we want to make you an offer. Why don't you buy our position out? We'll do it in a way that makes it kind of economically attractive for both sides. So credit to them for kind of finding the high road, because it was kind of both of us. It wasn't like we weren't at each other's throats, but it wasn't working. And that was really, really painful. During that time period, it was enormously stressful. I thought I was going to lose the business. It was a huge kind of distraction. No one was happy. It, spilled over like many things. You do this job as a owner, operator, CEO. It spilled over into, my home life. And I was lucky that, it didn't cost me kind of everything, but it took a big toll on my home life for sure. And we ended up finding an acquirer. An acquirer found us. And we got lucky and we'd kind of found a path back to growth. But, in the big scheme of, I think the entrepreneur's dream, you have this big exit, everyone's happy, and there's kind of this great fiscal outcome. This one was in the so-so realm. Now, on the other hand, the business is part of a bigger company now, kind of in perpetuity. They're doing a good job running it, permanent home for the employees and the customers. And I'd been there for 10 years. I'd taken it as far as I could take it. So in that sense, it was a good outcome. On the other hand, I'm working for a living now. I'm not in the Caribbean, which is okay also. But I think that's the sober reality is, for most people, if you get to an exit, it's not always this big kind of home run event. The investors, I think they would definitely say it was not a great financial return for them. And I think we should all be, everyone likes to just play the hits. And I think that creates this kind of perception that like everyone else is killing it. And me as a owner, operator, or founder, boy, I'm the only one that's kind of struggling, trudging uphill. So that's why I like to share kind of just the unvarnished reality of what happened there.
Well, thanks for sharing the details and some of the specifics on that. And every success story has failures along the way and
So many.
missteps, or I should have gone left instead of right at that point in time, or whatever, right? We all have those moments. Let's take a look at the flip side, make or a highlight or a win.
Here's how I would describe it. I think one of the things I learned from it is when you're running a business, there's peaks and valleys. And in reality, there's more valleys than peaks. So one of the things I think as a second time CEO I learned is to learn to live in the valley. Now, you shouldn't be content and complacent with living in the valley. You got to climb out. Otherwise, you don't have a business. But it was a tough lesson, but a valuable lesson to learn is like, hey, you got to accept that being in the valley is part of it's part of the job. I worked in fast food when I was in high school, and I worked at Wendy's, and they used to tell us something because you had to wear this hat. No one liked to wear the hat. And they said, look, you flip burgers, wear the hat. That's, but you want to be a CEO, you want to run it, whatever your titles, owner, operator, CEO, franchise owner, you flip burgers, that, you're an owner, operator, you got to live in the valley. That's part of it. So, certainly we've had at Spiralyze, we've had some nice success with growth, profitability, with, delivering results for our clients. Not every day is a perfect day, but I think that's one of the things I've learned is you learn to live in the valley and you accept that, hey, that's part of the job. Because if you don't, I think you drive yourself nuts. I think you're just signing yourself up for a lot of unhappiness.
Well, let's talk about a multiplier. The name of the show is Multiply Your Success. You're in technology and marketing and all of these things that have multipliers built in. So I'd love to find out if you used a multiplier to grow yourself personally or professionally, or organizations you've run.
So I think there's three things that have been multipliers. I love the question. I love how you framed it. One is get professional therapy and get it before you need it. Now, if you don't, get it, number one. But even better is get it before you need it. Now, I learned that the hard way, and I'm lucky because I'm married to someone whose background is in clinical psychology. My wife is trained as a clinical psychologist. She works in public health now, so she's not seeing patients in private practice. But thankfully, when I was kind of at the lowest of the lows, she recognized like, hey, something's not right. You need help. And that was instrumental for me, also for our marriage. And not everyone, but I'm not saying that, but you can do that and still end up in a place that's not great, but it certainly made a difference. And I think it's true for most people. So I would say, and if you do get to the place where things are good, I'd say it's kind of like working out. Like, you work out, you get in shape, you shouldn't stop because you're going to probably fall back on bad habits. You work out, get in shape, and then you start eating junk food and not running. What's going to happen? End up in a bad place. I think the same thing is true for mental health. And I think if you get to a good place, you should keep working. You may want to change your pattern or what type of therapy you're doing, but you should do it. That's number one. Number two, have a peer group of people who are your real peers, not your employees, and also not people that control your paycheck or, your investors, real peers. Really helpful. I have a CEO peer group. We meet every 2 weeks. It's great. It's a form of therapy, but it's a different thing. Number two, I'd say just tactfully for me, I spend a lot of my time with customers and sales. And about 3 years ago, and we all do this thing that we're doing right now, which is in the modern world, we interact through Zoom windows. Now, I'm a big fan of in-person stuff. I try to do as much in-person, but still, in 90% of what I do is through a computer screen. So I hired a voice coach. She's incredible. I didn't know this when I hired her, but she actually works on the TV show The Voice. Now, she's not on camera, but she's one of the people behind the scenes coaching the contestants. And she worked with me on my presentation, voice and pitch and diction and speed and just conveying emotion. Really hard thing to do. And I think those skills, whether you work on a job site, you work on Zoom, you work in digital marketing, you work in HVAC repair, we all communicate. And those skills, it's just like anything else. If you're a musician, you would hire a coach to help you be a better musician. If you sing opera, you would hire a professional person to improve your voice. If you're doing what we do, which is communicating with clients, hiring someone to help you with how you communicate and come across, it was a big multiplier. And I reached that pretty late in my career. I'm 47, so I was like maybe 42, 43 when I did that. my regret is I didn't do that sooner.
Excellent. And the final question we ask every guest is, what does success mean to you?
Look, I think that there's professional success and personal success. And I think the thing I've learned from doing this second time around is not to attach one to the other, because you can have one, you can sometimes the other. By the way, you could also have neither of those. And I don't think you necessarily have to choose between the other, but I think there's different ways to keep score. And you don't try not to conflate the two. So, for me in my personal life, I'm lucky. I've got a wonderful wife, 2 great kids. And, this keeping the score there is very intangible. And I try not to kind of connect that with my bank account, which is very tempting to do, especially if you get to a point where you've had some, whether it's a modest or moderate amount of success or a lot, but I'm lucky that I've had some success professionally. So I try to disconnect it from that. I think on the professional life, look, I have a duty to the shareholders of our company to grow the company at a certain pace, to have a certain amount of profitability, and to be delivering results for my clients. And I think between the hours of, the morning and when we stop, those are the 3 main things I think about. There's a whole bunch of other things behind it, but I think having clarity on that, and that's separate how I think about my value as a person, or what kind of husband I'm going to be, or what kind of dad I'm going to be to my kids. I try to have some hobby. I think having some hobbies and release valves. They don't have to be, sophisticated. I do a little bit of music on the side just for fun. I tried it the other way, and it's really not a great way to live. I think many of us have been like, well, if I just quit all my hobbies, I don't do anything else, and all I do is work. The reality is, work is like, there's an infinite amount of work you can do. There's always an email you can answer. There's always a Slack message you need to respond. There's always a client that wants your attention. You got to have those other things to make you kind of your whole you.
Well, and as we bring this to a close, is there anything you were hoping to share or get across that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Thank you for having me. And by the way, what you do is so much harder than what I do. I get to come and talk about some of my favorite things, A/B testing and websites. And as a host, you have, and I'm sure you probably might be doing one of these after me. You probably did one before me. You got to speak intelligent about what your guests have. That's really hard to do. So you're really good at this. For anyone who is especially in the B2B marketing space, and you care about websites, Spiralyze, we're actually holding our first ever conference next February in Fort Lauderdale. So it's a beautiful location in winter. While the rest of the country is shivering, we're going to be at 76 degrees and sunny. It's near the beach, and it's going to be on all things websites. And it's going to be hands-on, tactical, no speakers, no keynotes, no slide decks, no one trying to pitch you on to buy their book. It's going to be led by experts in the field on all things website. So if that sounds interesting, you can Google it. It's called Above the Fold, Spiralyze Above the Fold. I think you'll get something from it.
Sahil, thank you so much for a fantastic interview. And let's go ahead and jump into today's 3 key takeaways. So takeaway number 1 is when he talked about landing pages and just defining that. And I thought it was great. He made it simple. It's anything where someone finds you online, basically a web property. And he said it's different from a social media or social property. And he said, think of your landing page as the front door to a restaurant. Takeaway number 2 is he talked about how A/B testing impacts your customer experience. And he said there's multiple paths that your customers can take. And he talked about a current customer or returning customer versus a prospective customer. And I like the analogy when he said, when there are buttons that say returning customers click here, and he said, compare that to a restaurant asking, do you have a reservation today? I thought that was a great comparison to really help understand that. Takeaway number 3 is when he gave the 3 things to do or that you can do to improve your landing page and conversions. I thought it was great. He said, number 1, show the product, show the product, show to the product. I thought that was great. Show the product, show the product, show the product. Number 2, he said, start with a great hook or a great visual or a written hook. And he said, use the 1-second test. And he said, as an example, convert the language on your website to some foreign language you don't understand. Take a screenshot and ask several people you know to do a 1-second test and ask, do you know what this website does or what this company does? I thought that was great. The third idea or strategy he talked about is the idea about skim ability and how easy is it to skim the website. And he said the average person is reading on their phone is likely to be highly distracted. So is it easy to skim, to walk through and to see that? So I thought that was a great example. And now it's time for today's win-win. So today's win-win really comes from the entire episode. It's pretty simple to me. It's create a great landing page that makes it easy for your customer or prospective customer to understand what you do and then test it. So I thought that was just a great takeaway that I took out of this. And I think if you can do this, it's going to be a win for your customer. It's going to be a win for your company and a win for everyone involved. And so that's the episode today, folks. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast and give us a review. And remember, if you or anyone you know might be ready to franchise their business or take their franchise company to the next level, please connect with us on our website, bigskyfranchiseteam.com, where you can schedule your free, no obligation consultation to assess and help understand what your needs might be. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to having you back next week.